It's unconventional, but it won't be very dramatic. It'll be like any good lawyer's advice, full of ifs and buts, and you can read into any good lawyer's advice what you want to read out of it. So I don't think this is a smoking gun. It's a humiliating defeat for Theresa May, as Vincent just said, but I've been involved in government defeats in my 20 years in Parliament, and they bounce back quite quickly, because at the end of the day, every Conservative MP this morning has to decide, do we want to plunge my party into permanent crisis, get rid of a Prime Minister in the next couple of days? I'm not sure. There isn't a majority for a referendum yet. There are only 9 Conservative MPs signed up to that and about 65 Labour. So we're back to where we've been for much of this autumn. There isn't a majority almost for anything in the House of Commons. And so the next period will be very hard. I've always argued that sequencing is important. Mrs May could withdraw her current proposition to endorse the deal and avoid a vote next week, come back, try and secure something a bit more from Brussels, come back after Christmas. And the crisis goes on. And wonderful as a parliamentarian or ex-parliamentarian was to see last night, I wouldn't actually say that's the end of Mrs May and that's the end of Brexit.
Well, I want to pick up on what you said Theresa May could do there. I mean, as Minister for Europe, you've had experience of negotiating with Brussels. Do you think it could be a tactic for Theresa May, if she does lose next Tuesday's vote in Parliament, to go back to the EU and force some concessions out of them because Brussels wants to get this deal through as much as she does?
Well, it doesn't, because don't forget, both the Conservative Party as a majority and the Labour Party are opposed to freedom of movement. And that's one of the so-called 4 indivisible freedoms of the EU, freedom of movement of capital, goods, services and people. And Mrs May accused all the Europeans working in Britain, especially in the public sector, the hospitals, of being queue jumpers, very offensive language. I mean, she really has got a tin ear for actually talking to the country, talking to the people, and even her own party. So I don't think Brussels is going to alter its main position. And it's up to Britain, up to the political leadership of Britain to make a decision. But yes, I can see some changes in what are called the political declaration. That's non-binding, it's not legal. You could add a couple of more presents to that Christmas tree. Whether it's enough to get this through the Commons, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there are also those who'd say that the problem is that the Labour Party, the opposition party, hasn't yet got a clear idea of what it would propose in terms of any sort of withdrawal agreement if it was in power. So that's perhaps playing into this idea that there is no majority in Parliament because no one knows what they're voting on. I'd also like to talk about those in Parliament who would like to see the Brexit process stall indefinitely. Would that go against the public? I mean, we've been speaking to the public in the UK. They just want to see this Brexit fiasco, chaos, whatever you want to call it, done and dusted, and they want to return to domestic issues. If we stall indefinitely, isn't that going against what the public wants?
It can't stall indefinitely. The deadline's there. It's an absolute legal obligation. It's like agreeing to be divorced. You've signed all the arrangements.
Although you've written a book that says that in the end the UK will not leave the EU. Is that by stalling or by another referendum? How does that happen?
Well, that's actually in the deal. The deal is that we leave. I said that there are different types of Brexit. There's a political Brexit, which I would like to see stop pretty hard. It would need, I think, a new referendum because, as you rightly say, even if Mrs May was replaced by a new Tory Prime Minister, the Labour Party has got absolutely no clear policy on what it wants. So, but I've always argued that economically, I just don't believe Britain, as a sort of moderate, pragmatic country, is going to commit economic suicide. You're just showing a picture of Nigel Farage up there. He just resigned from UKIP yesterday because UKIP's moved incredibly far to the right. They've hired a guy who's got criminal convictions, a racist, and well known for that. So UKIP are out of the game. And you asked about where people are. Yes, I agree with you. The majority hasn't shifted since June 2013 significantly, but such polls as we have all show, number one, people are now don't want to leave the EU, narrow majority. Number two, they would like to be asked again. And the young people, I think Vincent made that point in his excellent report, There are now many more young people on the voting register than some of the older friends, and I'm not young myself, who voted for Brexit 2 years ago. They've passed on.